In the December 12th movement, collective work and responsibility, just like all of the principles of the Nguzo Saba, is not something we do during Kwanzaa, but something we do all year round. So when we think about commemorating the centennial of Malcolm, Lumumba, Fanon, and let us not forget Robert F. Williams and Medgar Evers, right? But we started commemorating the centennial of Malcolm X last year. Soon as we knew who the president was, president-elect, we said we're not following who's in the White House, we're gonna follow Malcolm X. We had a post-election event, November 17, and the title of that event was Malcolm X Was Right. Last year, during Kwanzaa, to commemorate Kujichagulia self-determination, we had an event bringing in Malcolm's idea of self-determination, and what Shaheed said, the shoulders on which we stand, we brought in the new year thinking, talking about Malcolm X. And we have a whole list, so just bear with us, because we've been working. So, in November, the post-election event commemorating Malcolm X centennial, 100 years Malcolm was right. In December, Kujichagulia, to kick off Black History Month, February 7th, we showed a video of Malcolm X speeches, because we hear so much about Malcolm X, but it's never better than hearing directly from the person. So Malcolm X, we showed a video. February 21st, we did a rally and press conference outside of the Harlem State Office building to commemorate the assassination of Malcolm X, but also the famous meeting of Malcolm X and Fidel Castro at the Hotel Teresa. So we had the press conference and we had the rally. A few days later, we actually acknowledged Patrice Lumumba. We showed the film soundtrack of a coup d'etat. And then into the month of May, we actually had a 2-day conference, May 2nd and May 3rd, Harlem State Office building on Patrice Lumumba, Frantz Fanon, Malcolm X. We had 2 days of speakers, we had video, we had a rally, and we just did the work, right? May 15th, for the first time ever, City Hall declared May 15th, Malcolm X Day, and December 12th, for all our works over the years, talking about advocating the teachings of Malcolm X, we were personally invited for City Hall to honor Malcolm X. And then, of course, May 19th, something we've been doing every day, every year, for how many years?
34
years. We shut 125th Street down, right? In honor of Malcolm X on his centennial. So what better way to bring the year to a close, to celebrate Kwanzaa, by actually capturing the essence and the spirit and the work and ideas and values of these revolutionary figures, right?
Straight ahead.
And make no mistake, when we honor Malcolm, Lumumba, and Fanon, we're not just honoring them, we're honoring the tradition, the path that they laid for us, right? Because when we talk about them, we're talking about traditions, right? Who is Malcolm X if we don't understand how Garvey helped us get to Malcolm X, right? Who is Malcolm X if we don't understand Queen Mother Moore, Nation of Islam, John Henry Clark? We could go even more to talk about Patrice Lumumba. Who is Patrice Lumumba if we don't understand the Pan-Africanism that was growing in the middle of the 20th century, the All-African People's Congress in Ghana, where he's getting inspired by Kwame Nkrumah that tell us who we are in this moment when we come together to honor them, because in honoring them, we're doing something that the West is terrified of. We're remembering. We know what their message is, and what we're going to do today is have people come up and remind us of what that message is. So when we talk about collective work and responsibility, this is something that we're not just doing to talk about people in the past, it's about the work that we also bring forward, right? So with that, we have a full program, so we're gonna have one person to speak about the legacy of each of the figures, but we also have culture, because at Sistas Place we say culture is a weapon, so we're gonna have spoken word, and we're gonna also have some video, because we know that there's nothing more powerful than hearing the people for themselves, right? So with no further ado, I'm gonna bring our brother Jasiri from Holla to come up to give us some spoken word.
Grazie. Appreciate it, elders, may I speak?
That's right, look at Colette.
Thank you. Grazie. Habaragani.
Ujima.
Right on. So just don't want to be long. Let's not be long.
Be strong.
Thank you. I'm always going to be strong. Always going to be black and strong. Very important. So Holla, How Lives Link All Together, as some may or may not know, started in prison in 2007, right? And it was created and formed by 7 black men, young men, right, in different various ages, but we pulled on and was taught and transformed by the legacy of the new prison rights movement in the 1970s. And that's how we got transformed in the prison, right? By the brothers and sisters who were targeted, who were radical revolutionary groups, who were targeted by COINTELPRO and forced into prison, right? And it was those brothers and sisters who helped us to get a sense of community, sense of identity, who we were, right? And from that work that we was doing inside, we came outside and started doing a lot of African-centered healing youth development work, right? One of those works that we do, we have an African Rites of Passage, right? A 2-year African Rites of Passage for young people ages 10 to 25 to reconnect with their African identity, to build a sense of community, but also to get connected to movement organizing. Because youth is very important to movement organizing, and we believe that that's where we should start. We should all have programs for youth development so they can be the ones to lead the movement, right? Ashe. So please get a flyer. We can share that around. I don't know if I have enough copies, so please, you could go to Holla website or to our Instagram to get more information on that. Right on. Also, yes, we are a non-for-profit, but we are not of the non-for-profit. And what we mean by that is that we are against the traditional framework that the non-for-profit is using. Restorative justice, we don't use that framework. We use a healing-centered, Afrocentric framework. That healing is within us, right? And a part of that work that we've been doing, we have lots of literature, But one of those things is that healing from historical trauma, we have a program, a project called the Legacy Tours, right? Where we take our families and young people to various places where our ancestors shed blood, fought back against the war, and healed and created community. That could go from Kemet, Ghana, Tanzania, South Carolina, Virginia, California, Oakland. We've been to many places, built with many elders, built with many organizers, right? And so this work right here, we want to share with the community and the people about how to create non-traditional approaches that's going to really heal our young people and our families. So with that, sharing this cultural piece is very important, you know, for collective work and responsibility, and that's the work that we're continuing to try to do, right? We have a responsibility to continue the work of our ancestors and our elders, and so that's what Holla came to do. And one of our slogans we always do is, we came to heal what you came to do. So this first piece, I'm gonna, it got rhythm, it's bars. Is called Make It Out. And I did this piece with one of my sisters, Mashley, who's an amazing singer. So I hope y'all enjoy it. Hoping it's loud enough. Yeah.
We gotta make it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on. We gotta make it out. Yeah. Yeah. Collective work and responsibility. Come on. We gotta make it out. Not the hub, but the struggle. And I know all you got is your hustle. But if you work on something else, you could probably gain a different muscle. Something you could trust. Guns, you ain't gotta bust. You a diamond in the rough. I can tell you one of us. Don't have to survive the storm to say that you had enough. Ready to give love, but gotta put down the lust and stop perpetuating the system, cause that shit lands on us. It's the truth. I'm just saying, have we survived already? Haven't we given them so many lives already? Don't know how to grieve right, ready to die already. Spin the block, hold it tight, oh he died already. Yeah. We gotta make it out. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. We gotta make it out. Come on. Come on. I know you feeling that. Come on. Come on. Yeah. We gotta make it out. I was stuck, I couldn't change my routes, and the evil's trying to take me out. So I pray on it, then let it go, I couldn't stay on it. I got dreams, I couldn't wait on it. Every day was a different challenge. Another broken heart, a wound, I tucked away to hide the madness. I can be the ones that love and cherish the flaws good while I watch them perish. Don't be acting like that filthy bastard. We got, don't you see the forces? God pour our libations and pass torches. Youth and elders need space to share stories and heal. It's amazing how you feel when that pain is revealed. People got trying to destroy, then we got time to build. For real. Come on, trying to make it out.
Gotta make it out.
We 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 gotta make it out.
Come on. That's our collective work and responsibility.
Find a way.
Find a way.
Find a way.
Ashe, ashe.
Following the dictates of Malcolm X, said we have to take our movement internationally and make it about human rights. The December 12th movement was on the international stage advocating reparations, and we declared that we should have a World Conference Against Racism in 1993. Organized from 93 to 2001, Durban, South Africa, where we took 400 people to Durban, some of the people in this room, and talking to ambassadors from the different countries under the leadership of Viola Plummer and others to say, if we're going to do anything in terms of putting our issues on the global agenda, we first must make them admit that slavery was a crime, something they had never done up until that point. So the Durban Conference, and why we have to commemorate it next year, is because for the first time, the West was made to acknowledge, because African people got together and said, you have to answer for what you did to us, right? And this is part of the journey that Jasiri talked about. It's an ongoing struggle, right? So we cannot let 25 years go and not say, this is something that we did. African people from the continent, from the Caribbean, we got together at a conference on the world stage to the point that the U.S. and this official delegation had to run out the conference because they saw the power of the African people united. That's Pan-Africanism at work. So what happens when we talk about reparations, and we're not talking about, begging anything like that, we're talking about African people saying, the West, you know what you did, slavery and colonialism, and you have to answer for it. We're not looking for paychecks, we're looking for them to deal with what they did to us, and if they can actually do that, we'll have colonialism, imperialism, capitalism in a chokehold, right? We're not looking for tokens. We're not looking for handouts. We're looking for a full assessment of what has been done to African people globally. And when we do that, we have a different world because African people will be united. So with that being said, we will get into our specific recognition of each of the individual figures. We'll start with a video, and then a presentation by each person, and then we're going to end up with spoken word, but then we'll open it up for you all, because we have you all out here today commemorating the centennial, but also the idea of collective work and responsibility. So we want to know how you will join us at December 12th movement in 2026 for the work that we have ahead. So with no further ado, give us about, how long is the video? 10, 12 minutes? And then we'll go into the specifics of each presentation. So, the video is brief footage of Malcolm X and Patrice Lumumba. And then after that, we'll have more extensive video afterwards on Frantz Fanon, because most of us aren't used to seeing Fanon so much, you know, in terms of his words and his picture. So I misspoke earlier, the footage on Lumumba was actually from the movie Lumumba by Raoul Peck. And then the voiceover of Frantz Fanon by Lauryn Hill comes from the movie Concerning Violence, from the chapter of his book, Wretched of the Earth, on violence.
That's right.
And then, of course, one of Malcolm's more famous speeches, and it's amazing how when you speak the truth, an undeniable truth that they will hope that we forget, it always stays relevant. So Malcolm is talking about us having the analytical intelligence to understand what it means when they're dropping the bombs over Congo. We have to understand what it means right now as they're dropping bombs or airstrikes on Nigeria, right?
That's right.
So all of this is timely, right? We honor them because they don't speak of the past, but they actually help us understand the present, right?
And the future.
And the future.
Yes, sir.
And shout out to brother Zayd Muhammad, the first. The inaugural recipient of the Viola Plumber Service to the People Award, along with Pam Africa. We honored him on our 38th anniversary 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I cherish that.
Absolutely, so shout out to brother Zayd Muhammad. So with no further ado, I'm going to call our brother Keenan Toure to come speak to us a little bit more about Patrice Lumumba.
Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Black power.
Peace, y'all. I thought it was important to open up saying black power. I think Lumumba shows us that black power is very much so not at odds with working class solidarity. He saw Africa as being bestowed to Africans for Africans, but he also supported the work that Europeans could do also to help us with that. And I think this room and the multinational representation that we have today shows the solidarity that we can continue to have as we continue in our struggle. So I'm very honored to speak about the life and legacy of Lumumba, and also to tie it into kind of some of the work that we, at the December 12th movement, have done this year and as an organization. I think I want to start with talking about Lumumba and kind of him as a person, because I think that he, as an African, he can show us a lot of ways in which we, as colonized intellectuals, can continue to grow as we, matriculate and through our experiences. So Lumumba, he came from a very rural environment, but he always had kind of contact with the colonial experience. So he was able to see the contradictions between how the colonial administration treated, I guess, the native versus the colonists. He had a very good education. So he went to Catholic school, Protestant school, and also studied at a postal school as well. So he's always seen his contradictions. Later was a clerk, but yet he still was able to kind of take in and understand the contradictions and the plight of the common man, the working class, or the peasant laborer in the Congo. And then you also think about the period that was bestowed upon Africa in the 1950s. So this is before the independence of the Congo in 1960. What was happening? You had the Mau Mau Rebellion in Kenya. You had the Algerian War, one of the bloodiest, most protracted conflicts for freedom that took place on the continent or in any liberation struggle around the world, in which we'll hear more about in relation to Frantz Fanon. You also had the liberation of Ghana in '58 and the liberation of Guinea under Sékou Touré. So all these things are happening. And while Lumumba may have started as a petty bourgeois, someone who saw himself as Evolu, maybe looking at the metropole in terms of his identity, these things help to challenge his perspective. And so what you see in 1958 is him creating the first and only national party that sought to go across mere tribal lines. You know, there were dozens and dozens of parties that were created following at the onset or the lead up to the independence. And he was the only one that had the foresight to think, how do we go beyond mere tribal lines? Because Congo is a place of dozens and dozens of ethnicities. And he saw that, you know, unity is important. Unity is important. And it is the divisions that the colonial masters, that the Europeans and the Americans have used to divide us, to take the spoils and to place us into places of subjugation. You know, he saw that as the same disunity that is used to hang us or to create suicide for us. So I think that ties to the work that D12 has done more recently in working with other organizations here in Brooklyn to create the Black Solidarity Coalition. You know, there are a number of organizations in this city that do a lot of good work, both here in their communities and also internationally. A number of different ideologies, a number of different views on how to do the work. But, you know, in this period, we're looking at fascism, we're looking at depleted conditions for our people, we're looking at a period of extreme ethnic cleansing in our communities and an expansion of the carceral system on our communities as well. Something had to be done, right? Like, we can't all continue to be siloed and think of ourselves as this organization, that organization. How can we unite? That doesn't call for us to create a new organization, but to unite around the work. And so just as Lumumba saw that the future of a Congo had to be a unified Congo, we see that the future of a Black Brooklyn, the future of a working class New York, has to be fought in coalitions that go beyond mere ideology. And so we, with other organizations, some of those that are in the room today, have created the Black Solidarity Coalition, which started from our work on Black Solidarity Day. This has taken place the past 2 years. Black Solidarity Day is a day that takes place every year prior to the election with the goal of expanding political consciousness and education of our people. And so we thought we could maybe find work to collaborate on, and we found 4 areas. Those areas are housing, education and work for our youth, incarceration, and ICE. So I think, you know, Lumumba has definitely, he definitely has some correlation in terms of the work that we're doing in that area. And then the national question, he definitely saw that very well and straight on. And getting to the international part, so he attended 2 conferences, at least 2 conferences that were extremely important. Jahi mentioned one, which was the All-African People's Conference in 1958 in Ghana under the stewardship of Kwame Nkrumah. There he would have met Frantz Fanon, who was representing Algeria, Kenneth Kaunda, who was representing Zambia, and then you also would have seen a host of other leaders, future leaders, but also Kwame Nkrumah himself. And he also attended another conference in Nigeria, which was about culture, in which he kind of laid out his vision for the future of the party, his multinational party. And so I think, his nationalist party. And so I think that kind of points to the December 12th movement's what we find is important in finding international work and seeing our work in the broader international arena. How does the struggle that we're dealing with here relate to international struggle? And so December 12th movement has been very, very strategic, and we make sure that we make time to attend things like the All African Peoples Forum that takes place, the Permanent Forum of African People, which takes place at the UN. And some of that work deals with reparations, of course. And it helps us to stay connected with the diaspora, share ideas, meet new emerging leaders in the diaspora, and of course to kind of, make sure that our ideas are not becoming subjective, but they continue to stay objective and continue to learn. Other things that we've done is, I, myself, and Sekou, who is a member of December 12th, we recently went to Zimbabwe to their party conference. And so, going to that party conference, learning more about what a party looks like, how a party functions. Lumumba said that it's not enough to have a party that champions democracy, because you can champion democracy and be hollowed out, not care about the material conditions of the people. He encouraged us to look at broader unity, things that are national, while discouraging despotism, because he sees kind of how the liberal Western world will kind of paint it. But he's saying you have to have that broad nationalism in order to meet the conditions of the people. And I think that Zimbabwe, going and visiting, they're a great representation of that, of the work that has to be done. Lumumba talks about how unity was important throughout until every country is free. We all had to band together. And you see that in terms of the work that Zimbabwe has done in the World War that took place, Africa's World War that took place in the Congo. Let's see. Yeah, so, as I said, he said unions of patriots is indispensable, especially during a period of struggle. So thinking of D12 and kind of the educational things that we've done here in the United States for our community to make sure that our community is not disconnected from what's happening abroad. So what does that look like? That we had a program a couple of weeks ago talking about sanctions. So the impact of sanctions. I don't think that most people understand how powerful sanctions are. They don't just impact business. They impact things like education. You can set back a country decades in terms of their capacity and development potential by creating sanctions. You're killing the most vulnerable people within populations by the adoption of sanctions by the West.
The French settler process of colonization, that in such a violent process of extraction of the resources of France, the brutalization of the native Algerian people, this first world of French settler colonial society being created as a product of the deterioration of human life of the native Algerian people. And so in Wretched of the Earth, it really is so much a blueprint and sort of a map of all of the dynamics that are playing out in terms of the cementing of these two worlds, the dynamics that play out in terms of the consciousness of the settlers and the impacts of colonization on the native people, and the violence of that, how it was maintained, Fanon's contribution in terms of recognizing the violence that would be required in terms of reuniting the world and reclaiming the humanity of the native people in their process of decolonization, which Wretched of the Earth being a synthesis of his analysis leading up to the national liberation struggle's success, that months after he died, Algeria successfully liberated their land from French settlers, and his observation of what brought this struggle together in terms of the unity between trade unionists, the peasant class, and also a map of sort of like the issues that impeded the struggle's advance, like the misleadership, the concessions, the co-optation. So that being a critical text in terms of our understanding of how this dynamic of colonization maintains itself and its direct attack on the humanity of the people that it maintains control over, fights to maintain control over, and calling out of the brutality and the violence required of this dehumanization in order for the settlers to maintain their ruling order. And I think in terms of looking at our own conditions, in terms of the conditions of dehumanization, the conditions of violence that the state maintains, and recognizing how much the divide and conquer that's imposed here also depends on this image of less than human that it creates in this cultural promotion of our criminality as Black people that has continued since the projection of our image as enslaved laborers, that this notion of us being forced laborers required that the world considered us as less than human. And then looking now at the prison incarcerated population as having grown 500% since 1973 as a direct demonstration of how our dehumanization then continues in the name of criminality, in terms of our mass incarceration now, and in terms of struggling against this culture that's promoted of our criminality, and the conditions that we're subjected to behind the wall, and advocating for the humanity of people who are currently targeted for arrest and capture, especially on the basis, the notion that someone could be criminal as a result of their lack of ability to afford housing, the move to criminalize homelessness, the move to criminalize not being able to afford the fare as this promotion of a culture of, yes, it's been generations since you were forced to work and be exploited and extracted from via your wages. Now the question of your poverty, this process of impoverishment that has consisted since then is now the basis of your criminality. And your arresting and you being caged as a human being is on the basis of your criminality associated with your poverty. The conditions of the favelas, the barrios, the ghettos, which Fanon was talking about, in terms of that being consistent dynamic, the dehumanization of these, produced by these conditions of impoverishment imposed by the settlers, the colonizers, the oppressors. And I think in terms of how we see struggling to improve the conditions of our humanity and demanding in this fight for our recognition of humanity, that we reject this question of our criminality and the basis of us being targeted, arrested on the street, captured, caged, as well as how it relates to this suggestion of, are you legal or not? Whether you're not, you're legal to be here, being another prompt for you being targeted, arrested, and caged as a human being.
Right.
And in terms of the work of the Black Solidarity Coalition and working with the friends and family of the formerly incarcerated, fighting to advance that struggle in terms of the conditions that people who are incarcerated are subjected to. They recently put pressure on Governor Hochul, who signed a bill that is increasing surveillance of prisoners on the basis of how Robert Brooks and Messiah Nantwi were brutally tortured and abused. And so that, I think, in terms of bringing Fanon's assessment of humanity as a question that legitimizes the conditions that you're subjected to, or calls you to fight against those conditions to establish a new standard of who you are and how you will be treated and what you will be, allow the infrastructure that provides your quality of life to determine who you are. That's what I think a major piece of his analysis contributes, and now we'll play a video talking a little bit more about his life and his contributions.
Yeah.